talk about some of those actions and the ways that, despite the controversy, you've been able to make it through and to stand up for what you believe in and to lead in a particular way.
Let me pick a couple of different kinds of actions.
Mm-hmm.
So one action, when I was a CPT reservist and I served in Colombia, there's sort of one of the sort of classic ways people think about CPT action is this accompanying when vulnerable, when a community is vulnerable to violence. And there are times like that. There are times when we were alerted that the paramilitary were downstream, and we hopped in the canoe and raced downstream to that space. And then engaged these armed paramilitaries, men with families far from where they are, in conversation for hours while the community canoe came back upstream, and they were less likely to harass those civilian brothers and sisters because we're standing right there talking to them about when did they last get to talk to their kids? You know, does the cell phone reach? So there's that kind of action that is both very connecting with the other, the opponent, who's an armed actor and who's threatening a community, but connecting with the human being who is carrying those arms. Another kind of action would be when the Iraq team far away, I'm working in the office in Chicago, and the Iraq team around the other side of the world has called for a fast because they've done a bunch of research, Peggy Gish and Cliff Kindy among them, but others from other parts of the world and the faith community have done this amazing documentation of the situation in U.S. detention centers under U.S. occupation and of torture and mistreatment. But nobody is listening. They've got the report pulled together in a way that the power brokers, that the decision makers could use it to change the situation, but nobody's opening the door. And they've been trying and they've been trying, and they said, all right, it's Lent, let's fast. And they called the church to fast. And the staff, of course, in the office fasts too. So we're fasting and praying and holding those power brokers as well as the detainees and their families all in prayer. And before Lent was finished, the pictures from Abu Ghraib broke in the press. And then everybody's saying, wasn't there a report about this? And the Congress and the press and all are eating up the documentation that CPT has carefully put together with the families and with the released detainees, the information from those spaces. And the world is noticing, and things actually shift some. So an action of prayer supporting in solidarity. And another kind of action that comes to mind, a very different kind of action, is an action that CPT and at least one other organization has had at Church of the Brethren and Mennonite Church USA annual conferences, or biannual conferences, depending on the tradition, where during times when the denominations were not finding a way to make space for LGBTQ and ally folks to really be present and speak their part. CPT has been one of the bodies in my body and in many other bodies that have figured out a way to stand with and to give space on our table or to be with in the speaking of those groups. So there's the transformation of the church and the transformation of the world and the transformation of us. And sometimes that's civil disobedience in a store that is supporting that monocropping company in Colombia, and sometimes that's being actually present in one of those situations of dire oppression and violence where CPT's projects are. Sometimes it's making a call or writing a letter. And you know, we can all do some piece of that. And certainly, I hope everyone who's watching this will join us in prayer. Definitely. And that is not in prayer at least. That's the core. That's the ground we stand on.